is Court Radio. And now here's your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome to Court Radio. I'm Dean Weitzman, and this is your hour to ask legal questions one at a time. That's it. All you got to do, it's very simple, is give us a call at 215-227-2727. That's the number for Court Radio, and that's the number for all your legal needs all week long at My Philly Lawyer. 215-227-2727. There you go. All right. My timing isn't the best, but I'm an attorney with very little rhythm. 215-227-2727. I'd be remiss if I did not mention that today is the 15th anniversary of 9/11, of the destruction of the Twin Towers and the loss of over 3,000 innocent lives, to what was and remains the largest terrorist attack on the United States soil. And there's all kinds of activities going on today with regard to 9/11. There'll be a ton of shows today on TV. But my heart and my thoughts are with the families who have lost loved ones, the children who have grown up without dads and moms. And I think that, maybe we need to redouble our efforts to try to find a solution to living together on this planet in a way that is more godlike and less violent. 215-227-2727. The lines are lighting. I know you folks have a ton of questions. Let's talk a little bit about the news, and then we're going to get on to our hot button topic with our special guest. All right, we have, first, cool news. The 2017 NFL Draft is going to be in Philadelphia. Can hardly wait. All the teams in the league will be here to select their 2017 inductees. That's for next year. I wonder if having the convention and all the recent activities that we have handled with aplomb. Philadelphia was really shown to be a world destination during the Democratic Convention. Things went very smoothly. Applause to our Philadelphia Police Department, the streets departments, and all of the folks who worked so hard to make sure that that was a smooth and uneventful and positive experience for the world as they interact with Philadelphia. Allen Iverson was inducted into the Hall of Fame and did it with grace and just a really heartfelt speech. For about 30 minutes, Allen waxed and waned over Philadelphia and his fans and paid homage to those who brought him to where he is today, i.e. his mom and his coaches and, again, his fans. So that was really cool. We're so happy for Allen, who still calls Philadelphia his home. 215-227-2727. Last piece of news before we get on to our hot button topic. This one's a little crazy, but we hope they pull it off. Philadelphia University and Thomas Jefferson University have combined to form a single university. I mean, Thomas Jefferson is a really known as a health sciences university, medical school. And Philadelphia University is more like an art school of sorts, textiles, and so to bring those two diverse institutions together is going to take some work. But that's happening because both boards of both universities have agreed to the combination. So wish them best of luck. I can't wait to see what the new logo looks like and what is the new name. Will it be Thomas Jefferson or some combination? 215-227-2727. All right, that's the end of news, and we're going to take a caller. John from North Philly. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Well, I want you to lower your radio.
I lower my phone?
Yeah, lower your phone, radio, whatever you're hearing me come out of. And you are our first caller for September 11th. So I'm going to ask you to hold on at the end of the call because we got brand new T-shirts so that you can proudly show everyone that you listen to Court Radio. And Monica will get your address. So we'll chat, but then hang on, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right, John. So what brings you to Court Radio this morning?
I guess I'm from Philadelphia, and about maybe 20 years ago, before I had my license, I had a car accident. And when I got my license, I found out that whoever car had sued me, and it was a $4,500 judgment against me. And I'm low income, and they want $1,000 down and $50 a week to pay them off, or they want $2,000 to just wipe it out. The problem is I'm a father of four, and I don't have that kind of money in one hand. I'm trying to see if it's a way to maybe get back in court and let them know I'm low income. Is a 20-year-old judgment claim against me? And is it a way that I can get in court and try to get like a either lower monthly down payment and monthly payments to pay it off?
Okay, I'm going to give you the answer. The answer is that judgment is held by a judgment holder, and the court cannot intervene on their behalf to force you to to give a smaller amount. And obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but 20 years is well past the statute of limitations, so you're not going to revisit the merits of that case. That judgment's yours. And let me just say to folks, when you don't have insurance and you're hit with a judgment related to an auto accident, you lose your license. That's the law in Pennsylvania. How do you get it back? Just as you've started this process, you have to negotiate with the party who holds the judgment. Now, perhaps there needs to be a little bit more negotiations, because once you get a successful negotiation and they give the green light to PennDOT, then your license comes back instantly. So, it sounds to me like what has to happen is somebody on their side needs to understand that you're doing all you can do in order to bring this to a successful resolution. Whether that means instead of $50 a week, it's $25 a week. Instead of $1,000, it's $500 down. I'm not sure what you can afford, but I know that if you can convince the other side that you really have maxed out, you can't do more, then I think you'll be a long ways to getting them to agree with you.
Okay.
So, but no, the court's not going to really be able to assist you in this regard. It's going to be your own negotiations. I'd say, hire an attorney for that, but then that's going to be more than your judgment. And so it's really something that you're going to have to try to do on your own, and maybe you go at them with show them that you're paying child support, or that you have these children, that you're paying money out every week for that, and tug at their heartstrings. I mean, corporations have them sometimes. Sometimes you have to use like the paddles of life to find it, but that's what I would do.
Okay.
John, stay on the line, and Monica's going to get your address, and we're going to get you a T-shirt, all right?
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
You're welcome. Take care. 215-227-2727. Let's get on to our hot button topic, because our guest has been so patient sitting here, and I know her mom's waiting to hear her voice. She's probably going to just pass out maybe when this happens. Keturah Dior, welcome to Court Radio, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Just move right up to that microphone. Close. So, Keturah is a lifelong resident of the city of Philadelphia, though she had a few years where she was hanging in the islands. Where at?
I was in St. Thomas.
Uh-huh.
And, I worked in the jewelry industry, which was fabulous. I lived on a little island called Water Island, took a jet ski to work in my suit, barefoot, across the street, and then went to work selling very expensive watches and diamond jewelry.
You know, whenever I'm in St. Thomas, I buy very expensive watches. So there's still people there's still people doing that. But now we're fortunate enough to have you back here in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, and you have a passion that you've really, it's been forced upon you, but you live on Lincoln Drive.
Yes, I do. And it was a family home. My parents have, bought the house 50 years ago, and there were always accidents on the road. What ended up happening is after I returned from the Caribbean, I started to notice that the amount of crashes just went through the roof. So that was in February 2007 that I started taking pictures. I'm also a photographer. And I started taking pictures of crashes. And, for us on Lincoln Drive, that's how we have block parties, because that's when all the neighbors come out. And it was May of 2007 that a car crashed into my neighbor's house. And it was a horrific crash. It was very loud. It was 2 a.m. I called the police first immediately as soon as I heard it. I had just come in from the movies with actually someone Ken Lampkin.
Oh, of course.
And
did Ken live with you?
Yeah, he did for a while. He stayed at my house.
Okay,
Yes.
The pieces are coming together.
Right.
I've seen your house.
Yes.
Okay, but how many accidents are we talking about? Do you have any sense of how many accidents are occurring on Lincoln Drive annually?
Yes.
How much?
Basically, there are 3 a week, and I track this through a police website, which has since been taken down, but 3 a week. After the one in May of 2007, I was energized. I took pictures of the crash. I made flyers. I went to every house up and down Lincoln Drive, from Wayne Avenue to Allen's Lane, and called a meeting with West Mount Airy Neighbors. I'm currently on the board of West Mount Airy Neighbors. And we started a small group of neighbors who volunteered, and we started doing research. So in addition to Lincoln Drive, we got curious about some other streets. So we did research for 5 streets: Henry Avenue, Lincoln Drive, Roosevelt Boulevard, which is horrendous, Stenton Avenue, and Germantown Avenue. We used 1 zip code. We tracked 1,750 crashes that happen every year on just those 5 streets based on police-reported crashes. And that went back for years. I tracked it for years, and that was the same number that happened every year.
We have Councilman Derek Green on the phone. We're going to talk to Derek about what his involvement, what he thinks needs to happen on Lincoln Drive to make it safer. Good morning and welcome to Court Radio, Derek.
Good morning, Dean. Good morning to your guests. It's a pleasure to be on your show once again. And I'm also concerned about Lincoln Drive and the safety of Lincoln Drive. I live in Mount Airy. I've been driving Lincoln Drive for a very, very long time, and so I definitely can relate. In fact, I was just talking to a friend and a fraternity brother who's a member of my church, Canaan Baptist Church, about these very same issues about the safety on Lincoln Drive. And I've noticed that too often people are on Lincoln Drive and think it's like they're in Monte Carlo, driving like they're going through a Grand Prix drag strip. And I think there's some issues that we need to address on Lincoln Drive. My office reached out to the streets department because of these issues, and what they informed me is that they will be doing shutdowns on Saturdays on Lincoln Drive this fall to do what they would consider routine repairs, which includes both guide rail and pothole repairs. And once those repairs are made, they will also be reaching out to the water department to make some infrastructure repairs and also to make some inspections, as well as talk with street lighting and traffic engineering to do some maintenance work. But I think the type of research, and I commend your guest for the research that she's done. Mm-hmm. I'm also a former president of East Mount Airy Neighbors, so I've been a member of that organization for a long time. But this is an issue that many people, not just in the Mount Airy community or the Germantown or Chestnut Hill community, use Lincoln Drive, but a number of citizens throughout our city. And so I think it's something that we need to take a look at. Your guest referenced Roosevelt Boulevard. I've also spent a lot of time up and down the boulevard. They instituted red light cameras as one way to try to reduce some of the challenges on the boulevard. But I think we really need to have some type of thought process and research on what are some of the traffic calming as well as safety perspectives we can take on Lincoln Drive.
Let me throw this out there to Keturah and to Derek. Sometimes I find myself down in Washington consulting with some folks down there. And there's this Constitution Avenue, which at one end is rather residential, and it reminds me, as it does, it reminds me of Lincoln Drive. Houses on both sides, and traffic moving at a fairly good clip. They instituted speed cameras which take a picture of the license plate of anybody who goes more than 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit and issues a ticket, just like the red light cameras. And they've seen a reduction in the amount of accidents on this street significantly as a result of that. Is there any chance that might work for Philadelphia?
I want to interject a couple of things. Real quick, Ken was a tenant. He's my friend. He wasn't living with me. Just have to correct that. But regarding the cameras, speed cameras are not legal in Pennsylvania. They work in Washington and some other places like that. They're not legal. Regarding red light cameras, though, in many states around the country, they have made them illegal because although they stop the T-bone type of crash, which is highly fatal in most cases, they increase the number of rear-end crashes. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania is way behind the loop on this regarding that. With the red light cameras, they are money generators. They create about $1 million per intersection per year initially when they are started. One of the problems is that after they are known to be there, people go through them less. What Florida and Tennessee did, which was terrible, was that they shortened yellow light times in order to increase the number of fines. And they ended up having to overturn that and return all that money to people.
Wow, that's interesting.
And they are generally lobbied for by the auto insurance lobby because once you increase the number of rear-end crashes, then you can redline an area and charge higher insurance rates. So they actually work against us. One of the things in traffic calming that actually does work, there's actually two, is the installation of countdown cameras, which tell you when the next red light is coming so that you don't speed through it.
They're popping up everywhere.
Yes, and also the idea of standardizing and keeping a certain length of time for yellow lights so that people are not caught in between with these cameras and with all this other stuff.
So I think those are two great traffic calming exercises. Derek, you have any other ideas?
Well, I think those are great traffic calming ideas. I mean, I talked with the streets department, and I know they've used other traffic calming ideas like bike lanes. However, that would not work for Lincoln Drive. But I am very curious, and we'll reach out to the streets department to see what's happening in other jurisdictions where you have, thoroughfares that have a long distance between lights to come up with some type of traffic calming perspectives. And I think that's something that we need to really look at. And Dean, you talked about D.C., Keturah, you talked about some of the ideas that you've had, and I think we need to look to see what's happening in other jurisdictions because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Exactly. So let's look at what's happening in other jurisdictions and look at some of the constituent organizations who have been advocating for traffic safety, and let's try to replicate those ideas as opposed to reinvent the wheel.
Derek, I want to thank you for jumping in on this conversation. I know yesterday I had sent some people from my office over to City Council because you're taking really the lead on bringing, kind of thinking about and working through the problems of the new law with medicinal marijuana in Philadelphia and how that's going to work. And I applaud you for those efforts.
Yeah, the medical cannabis discussion is very interesting. I think we need to take a proactive role in that. State Senator Dalen Leach, along with his Republican colleague, Senator Fulmer, had that legislation passed earlier this year. And it's going to take a period of time, at least 12 to 16 months, for the regulations to be drafted. And I thought it made sense to be proactive and start trying to educate the public about what is medical cannabis, what's going to be the impact in the city of Philadelphia. From a personal perspective, I became more aware of this because I do have a child on the autism spectrum, and I know there are parents and caregivers in that community who have looked to medical cannabis as a way of addressing some of the concerns they've had with their child. And so that's why I initially got some exposure to it. And I thought it was very important to have this type of conversation to begin to educate the public. So we will continue to have hearings regarding this issue to get more information and see how it will impact Philadelphia.
How do people get in touch with you, Derek, if they want to add their voice to these discussions?
Well, they can always reach my office at 215-686-3450. They can also reach me by email on Derek, DEREK, .green, like the color, at phila.gov. I'm also on Facebook as well as Twitter at Councilman Derek.
Councilman Derek Green, thank you for joining Court Radio once again, and we look forward to spending more time with you in the future.
No problem. Thank you, and thank you to your guests for all the work that you've been doing for safety, not only in the city, but also for the residents in the Northwest.
Take care.
Take care.
Yeah, and I wanted to add one more thing about the Lincoln Drive closure coming up.
You can, as soon as we come back from this quick break.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Dean Weitzman, and this is Court Radio. All you got to do is give us a call at 215-227-2727. That's it. 215-227-2727 gets you into the studio where I will do my level best to answer your legal questions. There you go. We are talking with Keturah Dior, who's a resident of Philadelphia and lives in or on Lincoln Drive and has witnessed
Countless.
years and years of horrific crashes to the tune of about 3 a week or 150 or so a year.
On an 8-block stretch.
On an
Lincoln.
8-block stretch. We're talking about the area of Lincoln Drive that is residential. Homes come right up to the drive. There's some lawn. Some lawns are pretty big, but there's lawn and then there's the homes. And that's the area that she's focused her attention on because it's her backyard and it's her house. Has your house actually suffered any loss as a result of this?
My house itself, no, but definitely people have. There used to be trees in front of my house. They're gone. There are bushes in front of my house that have changed shape due to cars landing in them. So, one morning I woke up to hear a crash. I looked out the window. There was a car on my lawn. I ran to get my camera to go take a picture. By the time I got to the window, the car was gone, and minutes later, yet another car crashed there in the same 5 minutes.
Was it icy out?
No, this was a sunny day. Now, when it rains, forget about it. It's a guarantee that there will be a crash on Lincoln Drive in the rain.
Because of speed?
Yeah, it's because of the speed. The posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour, which incidentally is the recommended speed limit for residential and commercial areas with pedestrians. It is labeled as an arterial road, which has by definition, is for 50 to 70 miles an hour because it's connecting things. And I think that's where one of the disconnects have happened from city planning view, is that if you look at a big map, you have slapped the label of arterial on all these roads that are going through residential areas. That's an improper title for those roads.
Reducing speed reduces accidents. Now, and folks, we're not just talking about property damage here. We're not talking about cars sliding off the road and then getting back on and continuing along. We're talking about the loss of life. I mean, I can tell you that just in my practice, I have represented hundreds and hundreds of folks who have been seriously injured and lost their lives as a result of bad intersections and bad stretches of road. Most recently, we're currently representing a young lady who lost her life at 17, one day before her high school graduation, at the intersection of the Roosevelt Boulevard and Adams Avenue, an intersection where annually there are countless serious accidents, and pedestrians are exposed to vehicles traveling in excess of 65 and 70 miles an hour, making a right-hand turn from northbound Roosevelt Boulevard onto Adams Avenue. And the operators of these vehicles really don't know that there's pedestrians crossing because of the design of the intersection. It's so important that we identify the areas that require the greatest attention. And that's the areas that have the most accidents. That seems easy to me, that somebody in the city could identify those areas that have the greatest amount of accidents, and then we just focus because it's not everywhere, right? It's not everywhere. We can identify maybe the top 10 areas in Philadelphia that have the most amount of accidents, and we can make an impact.
Well, Roosevelt Boulevard actually has been cited to be the worst road in the entire United States, hands down. I also attended Philadelphia University, and they had to hire a special police officer because of students being run over at the corner of Henry and Schoolhouse Lane. Henry Avenue is another one that has a massive amount of accidents. It's a mixed-use, commercial, school zone, all of that. Their posted speed limit is 35 miles an hour there, and most people drive much faster than that on that road as well.
215-227-2727. We're talking to Katora Dior, really a city advocate for safer driving all over, although she happens to live on Lincoln Drive. Traffic calming seems to be the single greatest effect on accidents. What does that term mean?
Okay, for those interested, if you use Google or Bing and look up PA Traffic Calming Handbook, there is a Pennsylvania Traffic Calming Handbook available to see online. But it's a method of building roads that has been used for 40 years around the world in the U.S. and Europe that has successfully changed the rate of crashes by reducing them by 80%. This is a repeatable statistic. If you do it properly, 80% of the crashes don't happen. So if you look at those 5 streets I've tracked, 1,750 crashes per year on those 5 streets, 80% less would reduce that number instantly to 350 crashes a year instead of 1,750.
Wow. Those are real numbers, and that's real. These are folks who whether it's the loss of their vehicle, having to pay the property damage to a homeowner, but more importantly, the loss of life or the loss of your health. These are serious consequences that if we could assist people in reducing that, needs to be looked at.
One more thing that's personal is that when I was 16, my father, who was in the trucking business, was in a near-fatal crash himself. He was in a coma for over a month. He came out with brain damage, a condition called an aphasia, and he died a year ago. But, the thing is, 40 years of his life was spent incapacitated due to speeding and a crash. And once this thing happens to you, there is no do-over. You can't backtrack it and get out of it. So when you do this type of driving, you are risking the whole quality of your life.
Absolutely. But we do it, okay? I mean, I do it. We all do it. But if there were systems in place that forced us to reduce our speed, made us more conscious of our speed, I think that we would all happily engage in that. It would be, even as you say, the countdown lights.
Right.
They help.
They're helpful.
Because
Absolutely.
I see coming up, I'm this far away from the intersection, and there's only 2 more seconds before it goes to yellow, and so let me reduce my speed now because I'm not going to make it through that intersection.
Right. And if you think about red lights, I mean, think about how you feel when you're behind the wheel and you see a green light in the distance. Most people tend to rush to try to get through it. The whole psychology of red lights is actually feeding the idea of speeding up. It's a sort of a personal anxiety that you probably feel yourself if you analyze yourself when you're driving, that this is actually counter to the idea of traffic safety. And a lot of the traffic calming methods actually eliminate red lights in some areas. In Turks and Caicos, they have no lights. They have traffic circles.
Yeah, can you imagine that in Philly? Come on.
Well, I know it's extreme. Turks and Caicos is a very nice little island. But there are successful traffic circles that actually exist here. One is over in Walnut Lane there, where they're doing the work now on the bridge. That one has no lights, and there are rules regarding how you use them. And there are areas where that could work. I was in Helsinki, Finland for a project with my grad school thing, and I took pictures, which I posted on my Facebook page, of a traffic circle that was right before a very busy intersection. So that stops people from speeding up to that intersection. So there are lots of ways to do this. There's a lot in the traffic calming handbook online, and we do need more intelligent views of how we plan roads for that. And they are including them, incidentally, in the work coming up on Lincoln Drive, which is for the non-residential part, I want to point out, not for the residential part.
Right. Councilman Green referenced a closure of Lincoln Drive. Katura reminded me that closure, while a significant step in the right direction, does not have anything to do with the residential portion.
Right.
So, and the other problem I think we have is that there's a lack of emergency access lanes.
That's a huge problem.
What are emergency access lanes, and why is that such a big deal?
Well, on Lincoln Drive, on the non-residential part, there are very few intersections. So if a crash happens in one part of the drive and it's crowded, emergency vehicles can't get there. There is no emergency lane. There's no access. So a person injured there, I know there was a very horrific accident there just in August. A person injured there may wait hours, if at all, they get help in terms of emergency access. So that's a huge problem. When you get into the residential part, of course, there are several streets that feed into Lincoln Drive, so that allows access from more than one vantage point.
Right. You're talking about that portion that Derek Green is closing down.
Yes.
It's 2 lanes in each direction. There's a center divider that, you can't cross over, and there's very little access points to get in.
Back in the 80s when Teddy Pendergrass had that crash there, I actually was behind that crash. I didn't know it was him until the next day. But I was coming home from some work-related thing. It was late at night because I was doing promotional type things. And I got stuck in that crash for hours. There was no way to get around it, through it, by it, and the intersection was less than 100 feet away, but I couldn't get there.
All right, folks, we're talking about serious traffic problems and roadway design problems that have exacerbated the amount of accidents we've experienced in Philadelphia. And guess what? I mean, I think this is a common experience for everybody, not just for Dean Weitzman, but there's a lot more cars on the road. There's a lot more traffic. I mean, heck, I was in L.A. this summer, and it was a breeze to get around. You always hear about Los Angeles being this horrible place where you get stuck in god-awful traffic. I-95, 76, and some of the and then once that problem develops, all the access roads to get to those places, we are just experiencing traffic like I've never seen before in this city.
Yeah, I know. If you look at what's been happening in Philadelphia, we are now second to New York in Center City in terms of congestion and people living in apartments. The Department of Commerce and the city is doing all it can to help improve corridors all around the city to increase the number of apartments and this type of thing, which will add to that. But we're an older city than LA. Our roads were built hundreds of years ago, and there is no room for expansion of them, without just destroying everything. So what we've got to do is come up with some better, more innovative ways of dealing with how do we manage all of us in tight spaces like this.
How about like a $5 a gallon gas tax that goes to the city of Philadelphia school district? and then you force people to use public transportation as opposed to everybody, for any reason whatsoever, getting behind the wheel of a car.
Well, when I lived in the Caribbean, this was the funny thing there. They didn't have a bus situation going at all. They have taxis, and you pay per person there. So the Senate there decided they wanted to make the gypsy taxis illegal. However, for people that live there, the regular taxis would not service residents. The gypsies were what kept us going. I started a petition. I got that turned around there. Now, here, we've got a similar problem. We've got to think of better ways and more innovative ways that are not just tax, and that is one of the things that Philadelphia University does specialize in, is innovative thinking. But that's what we need, is more people who are thinking about this in out-of-the-box terms.
Are you happy that Philadelphia University is now combining forces with Jefferson?
I think it's a good thing. And, my experience with Philadelphia University, I'm a double alumni of there. I did my undergrad and grad degree there. And the leadership of Philadelphia University is exceedingly innovative in terms of strategy. And that's exactly what my MBA is innovative strategy and design thinking. So I'm assuming that the strength of this will translate into some remarkable results based on both the history of Jefferson and the history of Philadelphia University.
Yeah.
And Stephen Spinelli, who is the president of Philadelphia University.
I guess he gets big kudos for pulling this together.
Yes.
215-227-2727. Let's talk to some people who've been waiting on the line. Kyle, Janelle on line 2 from Phoenixville. Hello, Janelle. Welcome to Court Radio.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hello.
I'm fine, thanks. We're on the air. What's your question, Janelle?
I want to ask a question. I was recently released from incarceration for about 4 years. I have a violent crime due to a family member that was murdered, and I have retaliated to the situation. However, I've been married to my husband for 8 years, and I have an autistic son with him. And he's really basically, he has mental health and stuff like that. And he's a good father, but it's a lot of things that I feel as though that he shouldn't be raising a child by himself, because it's very hard for him. Plus, he's very sick with cancer. He keeps fighting me for custody with my son. And my parents basically had him living here, and they took him to court for partial custody, but I turned over power of attorney to my parents so they can help him. But they live in a different county, and he went back to Philadelphia County. My parents live in Phoenixville, and he override what the judge said in Montgomery County and took it down to Philadelphia. And the judge is friends with my sentencing judge. And I have no criminal history. This is the first time I've ever been incarcerated. And it's just basically he's telling me if I was to go and try to get custody, that I will lose.
Well, people can say whatever people want to say, but my advice is that if you believe that it is not in the best interest of your son to have custody solely with his father or primarily with his father, then you need to file the papers and fight for that. And it sounds to me, like you have the best interests of your son at heart, and it sounds like you're a reasonable person. And so I think that that goes a long way in the domestic relations arena when parents can be reasonable and put their child first. That shows through. And I think that's what a judge, whether it's Montgomery County or Philadelphia County, in this forum, in the domestic relations and with regards to children, the judge is always guided. The primary guidance for a judge in this arena is what is in the best interest of this child. And when
because he hasn't, not to cut you off, but he hasn't let me see this child in 4 years. And I just recently went to go, not want to say convince him, but I had to sweet talk him, on the level of being with him, because he hasn't gave me a divorce yet. I don't know what he's holding on for. But, he has not let me see his child. And I seen my child for maybe a half an hour. He knows who I am, but he doesn't know who I am. And he's like basically keeping him away from me and keep throwing, oh, you're been incarcerated, you're a convicted felon. And I've never been in jail in my life. Like, I can admit my impulsivity, with my family member getting murdered, that was a hurt piece to me. So, at that time, I really didn't know how to handle it, and I really was impulsive with my situation.
And listen,
so,
and a court's going to be concerned about that, rightfully so. But that, I believe, it begins by you pursuing your right to have a relationship with your child. It may be a very small step, but the court will allow you that step, I believe, and give you the opportunity to prove that you will be a benefit to your son's life.
Okay.
Good luck with it. Don't operate in fear, okay? Because it can't get any worse than it is right now anyway. Go forward and try to develop this relationship. You've got to make up some time here. It's not an easy road to hoe, but I believe from listening to you that you have the right intentions. So go forward and try to do this.
All right. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
All right, Janelle, be well. 215-227-2727. Let's talk to Michelle from West Philly on line 3. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Court Radio.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good. And yourself?
Good. The weather is finally going to break. I understand that we're going to be down in the low 80s for most of this week.
Oh, my God. That'd be nice.
And evenings,
hot. Oh.
Yeah, and evenings in the 60s. Doesn't that sound pleasant?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God.
I get to get my little jackets out and stuff, and, it's always a good thing.
Or no jacket, just feel free.
Yeah, free. All right, Michelle, so you've got a comment for our guest. What is it?
Basically, I was wanting to comment about the lady earlier regarding the traffic in Philadelphia.
Right.
I know Philadelphia is one of the oldest city, but I just feel like they should invest in highways. I mean, a lot of major cities have the HOV lane, which is for working individuals that's trying to get to where they need to go in the morning. I mean, and most major cities have 4 and 5 lanes. I mean, what's going on with Philly? They just got this 2-lane. That's why it's a traffic jam. I don't even think it's like so many people living there, but I mean, you need to invest in getting more highways, building on top of highways. I mean, you go into the Midwest, they have highways on top of highways.
Yeah, I think you have a good point in this regard, Michelle. We're talking about surface streets and we're talking about residential areas, but those surface streets and residential areas have a lot more volume of traffic because people aren't taking highways, they're taking the byways. And I wonder if, as Michelle says, if we had, 6 and 8 lane highways with HOV lanes, etc., would that then pull that traffic away from the surface streets and make those streets safer because of it? Let's hear.
I really feel that. Because I know when I drive, the highway is just worse than the byways and the regular streets. So you try to get where you need to go. Okay, let me take the side street. And then that's overcrowded, You get on the highway, there's accidents. You got to wait hours to get to where you need to go. Sometimes you miss appointments.
But
Just the other day I was taking my son to the dentist. I couldn't even get to the dentist. I had to postpone it because it was accident on the highway.
Yeah.
So, I think
your
solutions
solutions
need to invest.
Your solutions make sense to me, but those are long-term solutions. It doesn't, look how long they've been building I-95. We're going to have more lanes when they're done. I don't know if I'll still be driving when they're done, but,
right.
So the more immediate needs are, as Keturah says, traffic calming. But the longer term, I think Michelle's got a good point that we got to try to siphon traffic off of the the littler streets.
Well, this is
right, and I understand, but I'm just trying to figure out why is it taking so long. This is 2000 going in 17, and a lot of major cities been having these 4 and 5 lane highways ever since back in the 90s. I'm not getting it. Why is it taking?
Come on, how long?
Philadelphia so long to comprehend that.
Michelle, how long have you lived in Philly?
Pretty near all my life.
Okay, all right. I love my city. I grew up here.
Right.
I went to school here, but we are never, ever on the cutting edge of anything.
No, right. True.
So
that's true, but that's
Philadelphia
really
University.
bad. So,
yeah, I know.
You know.
I want to be on the cutting edge. I don't even care if we make mistakes. Let's make the mistakes, and learn from them. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's hear what Keturah has to say. And Michelle, we're going to end our call, but I want to thank you because you're a thoughtful person about really important issues.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Michelle. One of the challenges is that because Philadelphia is an older city, it was designed at a time before cars. And what you have at the edge of roads is property that's owned by a variety of people. So, and then you also have a certain design of roads, like let's look at Kelly Drive and Martin Luther King Drive. In order to widen those roads, you would either have to build bridges over water or you'd have to cut through rock, which would take decades to do at a very high cost. And in general, if you research the development of the widening of most roads, the processes do take many years to complete. And usually by the time they're completed, the amount of traffic has also increased. So the widening of 76, for example, I don't know who remembers when that started, but there was a period of time where it was narrower, and it took years for them to make it wider, and now it is more crowded than it ever has been.
Yeah, we improve roads so slowly that by the time we improve them, they're out of date.
Exactly.
So, all right, well, listen, we got about 10 minutes left to talk about highway design and roads and making Philadelphia, really, when it comes down to it, making Philadelphia a more attractive city. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's More Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm still Dean Weitzman, and this is still Court Radio, where we answer your legal questions one at a time by calling 215-227-2727. That's the number for Court Radio Sunday mornings. It's the number for My Philly Lawyer all week long. We're joined in the studio with an old friend, Keturah Dior. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning.
You know, our Keturah and my paths crossed. But it didn't all come together until she mentioned Kenny Lampkin. But then I said she lived with Kenny and she needed to correct the record that Mr. Lampkin was nothing more than a tenant.
He is my friend, but he was a tenant. Yes.
Right. And so if I gave the illusion that there was something more to this than a tenancy, I apologize. But Kenny did show me your house at some point. We were doing a drive-by, and so I know exactly where you live. Mm-hmm. And I don't think cars can't crash into your house. You're kind of up a little bit.
Well, that's what we thought about my neighbor's house. And when that crash happened in 2007, the driver clipped my lawn, messed up my bush on my corner, knocked out a traffic light, crossed the street, went up my neighbor's embankment, became airborne, and embedded in her house. So when I look at the angle of the curve, yeah, somebody could hit my house.
Wow. They need to have a lot of speed.
Yeah, and I know that car, I didn't track it, but it had to be going 100 miles an hour because the light it hit at my corner, crossed the street, past the first house, and busted out the second house's front door like a missile.
How about motorcycles? Have you seen motorcycle crashes?
I haven't seen many. I hear them. They're very loud, but I have not seen a motorcycle crash on Lincoln Drive. That doesn't mean that they haven't happened, but it might have been one that I missed.
Okay. Why, let me ask you something. Why haven't we seen more police involvement?
Basically, the police are sort of underfunded. They would like to spend more of their attention on violent crime or more serious crime. I actually live across the street from Commissioner Ramsey, who was the former police commissioner in Philadelphia. And when he first moved to Lincoln Drive, he did make some attempts, but they were periodic, of having police stop speeders. But they were, usually for a month or two or something like that. But it is a time and money issue that the police don't have the time to actually pursue on a full-time basis in monitoring every street.
You bring a good point up. I had mentioned earlier that in D.C. they have speed cameras, not red light cameras, speed cameras. You go over a certain speed limit, takes a picture of your license plate, and you get a ticket in the mail. No points, but you get a ticket. And it's reduced the amount of speeding on those thoroughfares significantly. We can't do that right now in Pennsylvania because it's not legal.
Exactly.
But it's something maybe that Derek Green and others could begin to think about and make changes to the law, because I think that would have a significant effect on what we're talking about.
I agree with that on the speed cameras. I don't agree on the red light cameras because there is too much information that shows that they actually increase the number of crashes. But red light cameras, I've known people that have lived in D.C., and they are terrified of speeding in those zones where those cameras exist.
Right. I don't know what folks think about that. I know, probably the pushback on that is that, I'm going to get another ticket. There's going to be another reason why I got to pay another $100 out of my pocket. But if that's going to save lives and property and heartache for a lifetime, in certain circumstances, in the end, you'll be happier for it. Let's talk to Loretta from West Philly, who's got a comment for you, Keturah. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi, Loretta. How are you?
Hi, Dean. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Welcome to Court Radio.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
I was calling to respond to the problem with the extra traffic coming through the city, and I don't know if it's a great idea, but if we could find some way of tolling those particular roadways that have the major problems, just that we are taxed to help build and rebuild the roads. I think the people using them should pay part of the cost of using those roads and hopefully become more conscious of the fact that they are using roads in a city that have to repair those roads from the extra traffic. And, it would be less expensive to find a way of tolling and having the users of the road pay for it than it would be in trying to expand and rebuild to accommodate them when they use them without any,
without regard for human life or property,
Exactly.
As Councilman Green said, treating it like it's Le Mans, in the city of Philadelphia, which that's a whole different story. But I find that an interesting suggestion, Loretta. Thank you for calling Court Radio. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
A toll on Lincoln Drive that the funds then are utilized to improve Lincoln Drive in a safety fashion.
Well, keep in mind that there are already plenty of funds being designated for highway improvement, maintenance, and development. What I think is missing more than anything is the thought process of including traffic calming in these plans. It would be nice if we could just put a blanket over the whole city and make every road traffic calming. But what I'm saying is start it somewhere. Start it now.
Katora Dior, who's an old friend. You want to say hi to Mom, who's a listener?
Crystal, who is, she doesn't mind now. She's 80 years old. She wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes swimming every morning before her full-time job in the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow. Crystal, thanks for being a